Space Jam intro is one of the most exciting moments in cinematic history from one of the most iconic movies of all time. Okay, fine, I'm exaggerating. But Space Jam was a big deal. It was revolutionary in its live action and animated fusion. It helped Michael Jordan reinvent his story. It brought two of the most beloved figures of the time together. And the soundtrack was straight bops. To this day, Space Jam is still one of the highest grossing basketball movies of all time. Granted, there aren't that many basketball movies out there, and it's competing with things like Air Bud, Hosiers, Teen Wolf, Basketball Diaries, and maybe Uncut Gems? But yeah, there's still enough that it's impressive. Besides the intro and the other really cool things about the film, Space Jam is also responsible for spawning one of the most amazing relics of the 1990s. And that amazing relic is the Space Jam website. At the time, and an extension today, the Space Jam website was not the most hype or cutting-edge thing in the world. It didn't have over-the-top graphics, it wasn't revolutionary, and it didn't save lives. But over 20 years later, approaching 24 years at the time of making this video, the website is still around in its original state. Some of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, you can visit spacejam.com right now with its untouched landing page and functional space-themed offshoots, just as the developers intended it. It's a charming artifact of the early internet. So today we're going to talk about the Space Jam website, from how it was made, to all the fun, cynical Easter eggs packed inside, to explaining why it was able to stay alive all these years.
Now, which of you Maroons has ever played basketball before?
Our story starts with Don Buckley, who was the Warner Brothers vice president for publicity and advertising in the 90s. Buckley was an early adopter of the internet and would spend hours and hours every night exploring the World Wide Web and going down whatever rabbit holes he could.
Where'd he go?
And remember, this is a time before Google and YouTube and Facebook were a thing. So I don't even know what he was looking at. Like, Neopets or something? Again, I have no clue what he could have been looking at. But you know who else had no clue? Everyone else at the time.
What's a web page? Something ducks walk on? Ha ha, very funny.
The internet was so new that barely anybody in the general public had a computer, there was hardly content available online, and you had to pay anytime you wanted to download a web page or just something off the internet.
Oh, but honey, did you know you could dissect a virtual frog on the internet?
Ooh.
But still, Buckley saw the potential in using websites to promote upcoming films. Nobody above him at Warner Brothers agreed though, so they just kept shutting down the idea. They were like, no, nobody uses the computer. Nobody's gonna look at this. You see, Buckley wasn't the first person to make or even suggest making a movie website. That honor went to the people who were promoting Stargate in 1994.
One small step for one.
The landing page for Stargate was this white screen that read, "Click on the pictures below to learn more about what is sure to be one of the most exciting films of the year." And if you did end up clicking below, you can download 2 versions of the trailer and read more about the cast and behind the scenes of the movie on the same white background in a serif font. Riveting, I'm aware. Buckley had a vision of making something more than what amounted to basically the saddest tweet draft ever made, before Twitter was invented. He wanted to make more of an experience for moviegoers, a place people wanted to visit and actually stay. So after a lot of hard work and continually pressing his bosses on the issue, he was given the green light to hire one web designer, named Dara-Lynn. In 1995, the pair, along with a team of freelance web designers, made the first Warner Brothers movie website for Batman Forever.
And as such are the exclusive property and trademark of Warner Brothers, Inc.
The website didn't have the name of the movie on the front page and has since been lost to the sands of time. If you're interested in checking out what it once was, one of those freelance web designers took some screenshots of what the website looked like and made a whole modern website to document the process of making it and just the design. And you can visit that page today, so I'll put the link in the description below. Anyway, so even though the Batman Forever website was just super chill, nobody at the studio cared about it. It was like a baby that they denied was theirs. Buckley still had to fight for resources for his online division and to get the URL that they made on the actual movie poster. I couldn't tell if they got their putting the website on promo material request based on looking at the promo material, but Buckley and Weiss were given a little more money to establish a small, semi-professional permanent team.
Featuring the best players in the world.
The team included Jen Braun, a freshly graduated graphic designer with a specialization in website design, Andrew Stachler, a design intern to help develop the site and its interactive components, and Michael Tritter, a cynical and sassy 26-year-old political science graduate who hated corporate America, was offered the job because he could write copy, and took the job because he needed the work. In 1996, the team completed 2 sequential projects. First, they made the Twister website, simulating an old-school research terminal, and they followed up the Twister website with, drumroll please, the Space Jam website. The most exciting place on the internet. According to the site, never on the internet have so few worked so hard to bring you so much in so little time. When I first saw the Space Jam website, what grabbed my attention was how simple and nostalgic it was. It just screams 1996. And that's kind of the main appeal of the site today. Dated design and simple graphics. But outside of clicking through a couple of pages and downloading some obsolete and low-resolution picture and audio files, there's not much to keep you on the site for an extended period of time. I mean, you could go on the Lunar Tunes page and call J&R Records to try to order the Space Jam CD and poster set, but...
The customer you are calling is unavailable at the moment. Please try again later.
I don't think anyone's home. However, turns out the Space Jam site is more than just a nostalgic time capsule that you can look at for 5 minutes to remember what the 90s was like, then go back to your normal life. Since nobody at Warner Brothers cared about their online capacity, Buckley's team had very little oversight, which means not only is a lot of the site's content a semi-experience with a VR tour of Michael Jordan's personal basketball court and some fun basketball tips for the kiddies, but it's also the snarkiest corporate URL I've ever visited.
Interesting.
With no higher-ups to say no, the writing team, which was mainly Tritter, remember that angry political science guy?
And dara-lynn Weiss.
They had the opportunity to infuse a lot of their disgruntled personality and worldviews into the copy. I think the best way to describe the writing tone is witty, with a twinge of rebellious angst. You can tell that Tritter didn't like basketball, thought the concept and name of the movie was ridiculous. You'll see why later. And he had a chip on his shoulder about the system that he was a part of. At least that's what I imagine from reading it. That feeling doesn't come across on every page, but it pops up enough that I thought it was necessary to dedicate over an hour and a half of my life to searching through every available page and paragraph to find the sassy gems. I'm not going to go through all the snark, but here's a collection of my top 8 favorite comments. First, we have the most passive-aggressive description of a movie used to advertise said movie.
If you like basketball and you like to jam, go no further. Space Jam isn't just about Michael Jordan meeting the Looney Tunes, it's about a slam and jamming game to keep the Looney Tunes out of a failed intergalactic theme park.
If that description intrigued you, you can then watch the trailer, which is apparently
the jamminest 2 minutes of trailer time that ever hit a theater. It's 7.5 megs, it's QuickTime, and it's worth it.
By the way, both of those comments are why I think Tritter hated the name Space Jam. Then if you want to check out the player bios for the athletes in the film, they introduce them like this.
When they're not acting, these guys are involved in a sport called, quote-unquote, basketball.
This next point requires a little bit of backstory. So Wayne Knight, an actor, plays one of the main side characters in Space Jam. But one of his more famous roles at the time was of Newman in Seinfeld.
Hello, Newman.
He was so well known as Newman that almost everyone, including myself, would refer to him as Newman as opposed to Wayne Knight or whatever his character's name was in another movie.
I'm gonna run you over when I come back down.
Newman!
So the first line of the cast bio page on the Space Jam website reflects that, before even mentioning the star Michael Jordan.
No, his real name isn't Newman.
They also had a coloring section for kids that treats children like adults.
Since you probably know how to use the computer better than mommy or daddy, use their printer to print these simple black and white pictures of the cartoon characters from Space Jam, and color them in yourself.
And a hype up for their basketball tips that promises.
Do you know how to play basketball as well as Michael Jordan? If you read these tips, you will. Or maybe not. Either way, come back soon to learn some basketball terms as well.
But I think my favorite thing of all the things is on the page where you can download posters for the movie.
Don't jam your computer, download this screensaver, and never again will you need to suffer the indignity of burnt phosphor.
What's that? Beats me. We didn't have that in school.
What? I love this so much because it's one of the more obscure and dated references I've ever heard. Some explanation. So back in the old days, if you kept an image on screen for too long, that image could potentially burn into the screen itself. It could burn the phosphor on the screen, which would leave a ghost image. So basically, you can see the picture all the time, no matter where you are. So essentially, this line means/implies, 1, instead of posing these pictures on the screen so you can look at them whenever you want while scrolling the internet, you can download them and keep them as screensavers,
thus avoiding a ghost image.
And 2, it assumes that you were indeed going to keep this weird-ass poster on your screen all the time. And honestly, I'm just so about that assumption. Those are all the excerpts I want to share right now, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many you can find by yourself if you just comb through all the massive essays and titles and whatever other text is on the website. Outside of the obvious things that are kind of just there for visitors to see, there are 2 other hidden things that I want to talk about. First, the Space Jam website has quite a few Easter eggs. I'll describe the 4 notable ones with a little follow-along journey/story. If you look at the Stellar Souvenir page, you'll see a beautiful little street corner. Upon waiting for the screen to load, you might be thinking, you know what? I need a haircut. This entices you to push the haircutty twisty thing. It won't help you get your hair cut, but it will confirm your suspicion that you, in fact, need one. At this point, you're probably thinking, I should borrow money to get said haircut. You go back to the Stellar Souvenir page, push the loan button, and oh no!
Sorry babe, can't help you.
You can't get money here. Thus concludes the small narrative, with only 2 Easter egg examples. But you can also go to Jump Station, one of the other planets, and find a page that says,
well, we've got no idea how you got here, but you've discovered a now empty page of information. Congratulations. Now please go somewhere else. Thank you.
And if you look on the sidebar that shows up on some of the pages, you can click a star that shows you who made the website plus their then emails. I'm telling you, it's a hoot. Okay, Easter eggs out of the way. The next thing I want to talk about is something you can't see on the website directly. They're like Easter eggs that were never meant to be found, but I'm going to tell you how to find them. So on all web browsers, there's a function where you can see the code used to make any web page. It works for everything. Google, Facebook, Neopets, whatever. To see this code on Chrome, which is the browser I use, not sponsored, you go to the 3 little dots on the side of your web browser page, click More Tools from the drop-down menu, then click Developer Tools from there. This will pop open a panel with a lot of weird stuff that I don't understand, so I'm not going to explain. But simply put, that's the developer tools, that's the code used to make the web page of wherever you are. If you go on developer tools for the Space Jam website, on quite a few pages, you can see little hidden messages from Tritter. Again, the copywriter and partial programmer.
Michael's the greatest ever.
Shut up.
No.
Here are just a few of my favorite secret messages. On the press box page, he quotes the first few words of the First Amendment.
Congress shall make no law, etc., etc.
On Jam Central, the place that covers behind the scenes and actors' bios, he says both.
Reading is fundamental.
And
fame requires every kind of excess.
On the sitemap, which is essentially an index of all the pages and all the planets on the homepage, he seems to get really angry about the idea of a sitemap.
The sitemap, for those unable to figure out the site.
And my all-time absolute favorite.
Technology, schmechnology.
In an interview with the Rolling Stone, Tritter stated, "You can tell what music I was listening to that day or what books I was reading. It was just jokes to myself no one would ever see, and it was a way of keeping myself sane. But I guess they ended up being seen. So if you want something to make you laugh or think, I highly recommend going through the entire Space Jam website with developer tools on." So now that we've explored the Space Jam website together and we've had a moment, you might be thinking, if the Stargate, Batman Forever, and Twister websites were discontinued, how did this masterpiece stay online for so long? How did this quirky and almost middle finger to the movie manage to cement itself on the Warner Brothers servers? Well, because it was forgotten. And when things get forgotten, people generally don't think to change them or get rid of them. The Space Jam website floated in cyberspace, no pun intended, but totally pun intended, until 2010 when it went viral on Reddit. People went nuts for it. The team who made it became mini legends. The clicks were climbing, everything was great. But the problem with the viral fame is that Warner Brothers was now reminded of the site. Remember how I said obscurity saved the site from being deleted? Well, notoriety caused it to be deleted. Once it was brought to the attention of people within the organization, they deactivated it, thinking that this wasn't supposed to be up anymore, it didn't belong on the internet, let's just take it down.
You heard of the Dream Team? Well, we're the Mean Team, wussy man.
Wussy man.
Now this might seem weird because, again, the site is still around. You can still visit spacejam.com. That's why I'm making this video. Well, turns out the website had one more saving grace. Remember Michael Tritter, that cynical copywriter who didn't want to be a part of a big corporation? Well, he still worked at Warner Brothers all those years later as vice president of theatrical productions. Basically, he was in charge of online and interactive marketing. He became not just the person who made the site, but who saved it. With his power, he was able to call up the people who took it down and have them put it back up again. I actually emailed Michael Tritter recently asking for an interview about his mindset while making the website and saving the website, but unfortunately he didn't get back to me, which I totally get. He's probably a very busy guy. However, Michael, Mr. Tritter, if you're watching this, I am still very interested in talking to you about this for another video. So if you're down, you can check your email. I'm probably in there, or you can contact me here. No pressure, just putting it out there. Going back to now, the new Space Jam sequel is set to hit theaters in 2021, and I'd like to think that this website, made by a scrappy team of passionate yet undirected people, was the thing that inspired the studio to keep the franchise going over 25 years later. Here's hoping we get another iconic website and movie intro. We're bringing it full circle. And that is the story of how one of the most beloved relics of the internet started and survived over a quarter of a century later. At this point in the video, if you've ever wanted to see a toddler with zero interest in basketball gush over Michael Jordan, this is your chance. As a fun treat, here is some footage of me as a 2-year-old in 1996 raving about how much I love Space Jam.
What's your favorite movie?
Space Jam.
Space Jam? Okay, what's your favorite, who do you like better, Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck?
Daffy Duck is my favorite.
Why?
Because I do like Bugs Bunny.
Why not?
Cheers for Michael Jordan.
Diana, can you tell me what your favorite movie is?
My favorite movie is Space Jam.
And who's your favorite movie star?
Bugs Bunny.
Why do you like Bugs Bunny?
I like Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan.
And Michael Jordan, but why?
Because I liked him.
Okay, all the Space Jam stuff's out of the way now. With the end of the video, I'd like to thank my patrons Matt, David, and Patrick. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you, the viewer, also want to support me, you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and or donate to my Patreon. The link is in the description below. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.